Instead of dieting forever, never actually getting leaner, I'm debunking my old belief. I used to say you're better off with a slight deficit, eat as much as possible while seeing a little loss in the scales. This time, things were different. She never saw results before. It always ended up in sabotage. Hello, and welcome to 100% Raw with Ruby. As you heard Michelle's part 1 last week, we went deep into how she was training heavy, busting her butt, had a trainer, doing powerlifting, focusing so much on strength, yet she was never getting the results she wanted. She thought that she would have a lot more muscle mass by now. To her surprise, hypertrophy training and training for body composition requires a lot more than that. You'll hear just how much everything changed for her. In this one, we're debunking myths around how to approach a diet, the most effective way, which can be quite controversial to what's online. Also, the importance of building muscle, keeping expectations in line with the season of life you're in, as is the case that many times we're not aware of what is holding us back. We need more women to hear this, and you'll hear Michelle's plead for women over 35, and I hope that it gives you some hope as well. The end of last year, she had an epiphany last year. That was what changed everything for her. Like, how many years later? 4 years later? You could have given up. You know that meme where they're hacking away and then the person gives up right before they hit the diamonds? That is most people, because they're not patient enough to wait the process. They don't understand just how important this work is. That's why I want you to emphasize it, because I'm the coach. You're the one who went through it.
Yeah. I mean, I think a hard part too was learning to trust myself and where I came from. I mean, I was 80 plus pounds more than I am. And I thought, going to lift less or, eat at the higher end of maintenance, I was just going to go back to my old self. And, I tell you a lot, oh, I'm feeling, a little fluffy. I'm feeling, bigger. And, it was from eating more carbs, my lifts. But in my head, I was like, oh no, you're going back to where you were. And I obviously...
What's back to where you were? Can you explain that part to me?
Well, 10 years ago, I was 80 to 90 pounds heavier, no muscle. I never worked lifting, nothing. Background is yo-yo dieting. And, I've had so many where I've lost, 60 pounds, gained back 60 plus. I've had a few of those, and I just thought that's what was going to happen. It's hard sometimes to trust yourself and know that what you're doing is, I'm not that person anymore. You kept trying to tell me what are the facts? What makes you not that person? I'm like, well, I'm walking every day. I'm, eating protein and vegetables and, tracking what I eat. And, I'm not who I was, even though in my head, feeling bigger, fluffy, and I'm going back to that old person. And you would reel me back in. No, you're not that old person. What have you done? What are you doing that has made you who you are today? And, it's really hard when you have gone through like the background I have to, trying to build muscle and eat more, when it was just diet. So
can I just say, Nora, can I just say that this is where a lot of people, just because something you said there, this is where there's a lot of misconceptions around just because you've lost a lot of weight or you were really overweight, or I think most people would just call themselves as fat, really. Like, you would typically just say you were really fat before. Like, that's the way we see ourselves. That's the only reason I'm using that term. I don't want to say it in any other way. But no, that, you know me, and I was the exact same. I'm the exact same. I wasn't overly overweight, but I did not trust myself. And with me, it was also the belief, hey, I'm short. Hey, I'm petite. It just goes to my waist. It's always went to my waist. I could never stick to anything. I always gave up. It was reiterated to me that I always give up on those shit. I have ADHD. But that, it's when you only have a history of failing and struggling, it's very easy to get into denial. Like Michelle and any one of you listening to this that do want to change, that see this, that are admitting to everything we say, because most of you would not admit it. I have someone right now who's been with me for the same time who's only now working with me in a way that we can progress forward because they're finally being honest with stuff. I don't think it was purposely lying or denying. It was more so that was her protective shield. So she honestly wasn't aware of it. And until we can become aware of what is holding us back because we're willing to change and we realize that things aren't going to be the same anymore, that is the only way we can step into what can be. If you've been dieting this whole time to only gain it back and then be told, and then the way that it was always told was you are not, like, eating out is forbidden, you have to change your whole way of eating, and it goes against the way that you want to live your life because, hey, her family doesn't want to, like, no one in her family wants to eat and like be the same as her, like the fit kind of, they don't like veggies, they don't like all of that stuff, so she has to do it on her own. Then there's the other element where they're always eating out. They go out on the weekends. The weekends were her thing. We need to work around all of these things because it is so easy for her to have it because it's there. We're starting to work on all of this, and that's not going to be an easy process. It is not just because of you, the way that we've been taught it needs to look like to get to where we want to be. And because internally, our brains, like our whole nervous system, doesn't like that reality. It doesn't align with the way that we want to live our life. We're going to sabotage. And that's why this is the process. And realizing diets aren't meant to be sustainable. The thing to keep in mind is unless you're aware of your strengths, your weaknesses, it's going to be very hard for you to see anything other than what you've seen in the past. It doesn't need to be large, broad scale changes. And if you don't have someone there to reflect things at you, that is where most coaching fails. And I'm sure you would agree with this as well. Most coaches aren't reflecting things at you. They're just dictating what you need to do. That's the only way that you've been able to get to this level, because you've been able to do your own internal reflection and develop that skill for yourself, which is why one of her biggest wins is that she's more connected to what actually matters. She's more honest with herself, more honest with the check-ins, went all into trusting me with her nutrition because she didn't before. It was like this thing she kept a stronghold on, which is another fear thing. She no longer self-sabotages the way she used to. There's no fuck it with food. She can catch the loop more quickly. Even when she spirals, she's aware that it's going on. So then she starts to do the very things that pulls her out of it, which is something we worked on consistently with. I don't care whether you're doing well or not, you're journaling until it becomes a habit. That really helped her. And she's far more consistent than the old Michelle because now she isn't all or nothing. She realizes, hey, I have all these other responsibilities. Do I like it? No. Am I going to complain while I do it? Yes. Am I going to complain that I didn't get in 4 sessions? Yes. And I'm going to send Ruby a voice message just to, like, you were internally okay with it. It's just you needed to voice it out. All it's showing is that you want results. But if you make it mean something about you that you failed, or that there's something wrong with you because you didn't get XYZ, even though you're trying to fight that it's okay, you're not going to go anywhere. She also can sit in the deficit now without spiraling. There was a check-in that you sent me as a voice message where it's the longest that you've been in a deficit without spiraling, without sabotaging, without undoing it all, without fucking it all over. That is why I'm a huge proponent of you should not aim to make diet sustainable in any one way. You need to make sacrifices. You need to say no to things. Know that there are no events coming up. Michelle had quite a lot. I want you to tell me how you navigated that. Typically, compared to old Michelle, you would not have navigated it the same way.
Yeah. I mean, I plan ahead, I track. I mean, I did some of these things, but then also I'm able to do less calories to compensate for maybe having a day where there's more calories.
But why couldn't you do that before?
A number was stuck in my head and it just sounded horrible. And, I would tell
me
myself,
more. I want to know more on that. I want to know more on this part.
I can't do it. I had probably 8 years ago, I had a horrible coach and he stuck in my head 1,400 calories, and I was bigger. I probably, I don't know where he came up with that number, but he would tell me, if you want to fit into such and such a clothes, shove celery in your mouth if you get hungry, or like it was just all about hitting that number. And I think I relate that with, the numbers, like that bad experience. So
I want to understand more on that part. Try to like, what exactly made you fear it?
I would think ahead. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to be moody. I'm going to be this. I'm putting all these stories in my head before even trying it. And uh, I don't even think about it now. I'm just, this is just what I'm going to do. And I've been able to, yeah, of course I get hungry. That's normal. But I think I lived in being hungry for quite some time, that it was like a stress, like a trauma, you know? So,
That hunger
yeah,
part, this is exactly why
yeah,
you will never succeed, just like Michelle didn't. She failed twice. It was twice she failed a diet, and I knew it. I didn't even put her in the diet. She decided to put herself in one. I'm like, bro, seriously, no. Like, no, you're still you're still focused on the scale. You're still focused on comparing your progress photos. You only
yes,
just friggin' spoke about them the other day. And then it's like, my body won't respond. I'm like, well, I didn't put you in a deficit, so whatever, I don't care. Like, I just said it bluntly, because you can keep spinning your wheels and putting yourselves into deficits, but you're not ready for a deficit until you don't even think of one, because that hunger is like, you are not going to have, like, yes, I'm sick of those freaking ChatGPT posts. It's not discipline. It's not willpower. Yeah, it is discipline. And yes, it is willpower. You need both, but you also need to know how to set up your environment. You need to be in a place to even get into a diet to use discipline, because you are not going to be disciplined when it is burnt out. You know, those matchsticks, I have a freaking matchbox that needs to go in the bin. I've had that matchbox for years, and I didn't know that this happens, but apparently if you keep matchbox sticks for years, the thing on the matchbox doesn't light up. Apparently that's the thing. But I couldn't light up a single thing. I'm like, it's like rubbing it against paper. Like, that is what happened. You've burnt out the discipline for so long. No matter how much you strike that fire, nothing is gonna light. I'm sorry. You need to get out of that mindset first. You need to find something more empowering, because even when you're in a fat loss phase, just like Michelle right now, we are not talking about scale weight. She weighed in once. She did photos once. She did everything for me once, because I want to know the results at the end of the fat loss phase. I don't care about them in the meantime, because I know, because she's been with me for so long, that if she executes XYZ, I'm going to get the result that I want. Yes, I'm going to watch her in lifts. Yes, I'm going to get her biofeedback. My check-ins are so much more than all of this. That's the information I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using information on her food. I'm going to track what she's eating. And that's the only way that you get the results, because you're focusing on something that keeps you in the game. Because that, like, you know, the milkshake study, this is something I want to do a post on. Just knowing that you are going into a diet is going to lead to you sabotaging, is going to lead to you, like, just not staying in a diet for as long as you could, not dieting as hard as you could, not being able to say no as many times as you possibly could, and not getting the results that you possibly could, because you're so focused on the dieting. There is a study that compares two milkshakes. Both of them were the same calories, both of them were the same ingredients, everything the same. One of them was a fat loss shake. One of them was a decadent, delicious shake. That is how they were marketed. They both had the same calories. One was marketed as 200 calories. One of them was marketed as like 600 or 800. I don't know. I'm emphasizing the difference. The ones that had the quote unquote 200 calorie shake, they slurped it within no time, and they were hungry like within the hour, wanting more food. And they ate, I was going to use the word consumed. I don't like that word. They ate way more calories that day. I think it was like 300, 400 more calories that day than the other ones who actually ate less. They were full for ages, and they didn't eat the rest of their meals for the rest of the day. Like, they didn't finish their meals. They felt full and satisfied because of the wiring in there. And I didn't even know about this milkshake study when I started coaching. I started coaching back in 2015. 2015 was when I established my business. I was doing PT in 2014. So it's been like 12 years, and this stuff didn't exist back then as knowledge. And yet I was still using the same approach with my girls. Macros weren't a thing. So I was writing meal plans. They thought that they were eating way more than they anticipated, but they weren't. This is the point. The more you focus on the lack, the more you will get the lack. Yes, mindset matters. It's been the theme through this whole podcast. It's the only way that Michelle succeeded in this sense, because I also had the feeling that because she was restricted for so long, especially because of that calorie number, which is why I wanted to understand it, it's almost like we're not willing to make the sacrifices anymore, because everything online is saying you shouldn't do that. You should be able to have all of these things. And then you fall into that healthy at every size trap, where it's like, oh no, it's obsessive for me to plan ahead. But no, that's actually the other win. She is planning ahead a lot more now, planning for travel, trips, weekends, hotel gyms, food planning. That's a very different client than someone winging it and panicking. That is what matters, because in a fat loss phase, you want to plan everything. You want to get it over with. The more that you keep letting in just a little bit here, oh, it's just a little bit here, I don't want to be too obsessive, I want to have a social life too. Like, the more that you can get these diets over, the more you can live outside of that. You should not be trying to diet for the majority of your life. If you do it right, most of your life will be eating in abundance. But it's the opposite, isn't it, out there? And that's the sad thing, because people only know dieting. You might have a lot of weight to lose, like Michelle, but you can lose a lot of fat in a short period of time if you do it right, and if you can adhere to it. And you can't adhere to a really strict diet if you've never taken your mind off it. You need to be willing to make those sacrifices, and they're freaking hard. That's why understanding it matters too, because I'm the type of person that my training will suffer. And if my training suffers even right now, I'm not even in a deficit. I'm just not eating enough food compared to where I was before. I was on like 2,400 calories. I'm probably on like 21. Well, I was on 2,600 calories before. I'm on probably like 21 at the moment. I don't know. I'm not really tracking at the moment. That's the point. Like, as soon as I start getting a rhythm again, because I only just got back from Sydney and I'm back and forth, but I'm going to stay put for a while so I can develop the routine. And the reason I ranted on about that part is so you guys know that it's not always going to be fine and dandy. Sometimes it's okay to be recalibrating yourself. And it doesn't make you any less of a success. And it doesn't mean, well, what's the whole point investing in a coach? What's the whole point investing in this, that, and the other? Because it's not just about, if you haven't read the book Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, I highly recommend it, because there's no such thing as just maintaining. You're either increasing by a percentage point or losing by a percentage point. By working hard to maintain, you are increasing a percentage point, because maintenance isn't passive. You're always trying to add that 1%, and that 1% can be just staying afloat, because if you let loose, it's almost like when you stop pressing the pedal on the accelerator, the car slows down. It doesn't keep going at that speed. That is a way to see it. And that is the only reason that she's been able to dip into this. And because I wanted to go into my soapbox about this and then get you to talk about it, I wanted to just highlight her parts in this. She's calmer with food. Let me say that again. Sorted out her hormones. I think that's been the biggest part. We sorted out her hormones, and I should have asked her a little bit more about what she was taking for hormone therapy. But now that we've sorted all of that out, that's helped a lot more too. And no, hormones aren't having you store fat. They aren't doing shit. All they're doing is playing with your head. And by that, I mean the neurochemistry in your head. So that is a really powerful thing for you guys to be aware of as well. And if you're going through crazy changes in perimenopause, stop trying to lose fat. Stop trying to do these big things. Just maintaining in menopause is the biggest win ever. The more that you keep trying to force change in menopause, the more you're going to end up in the worst place than when you entered menopause. And I see it more often than I don't. I'm sure you do as well, don't you? You see a lot of women end up worse.
I mean, women my age were never taught maintenance. It's either let's shrink and, slim fast and fat free craze and, all these things to mess with our bodies, and cardio. That's what I've been taught. So the first time I lifted was 10 years ago when I started at 39 years old. And I'm just so glad I did, because as I'm entering midlife, the muscle I have put on and changing my body and lifestyle habits is key. Otherwise, I know where I would be if I was the same body 10 years ago coming into midlife. I'd have metabolic issues. I'd be on medications. I'm already hypothyroid. So I'm just very thankful.
I let you talk on that, because I think this is a really important point. Like, this is where I come arguing all the time that it is not harder as you age. It is not harder as you age. It depends on where you are with your habits. Believing it is harder as you age is what's going to fuck you up. Believing that age has anything to do with it. Yet the only thing is that muscle building is the hardest thing to do. Like, you're going to see the slowest amounts of change in muscle. It is the slowest ever. And if you're not optimizing for muscle, like I said, you're going to be losing muscle. And I don't know whether you caught up on one of the group calls when one of the girls was talking about her old coach. I highly recommend you listen to that group call because it's, I actually really want you to listen to that one. But she was saying how she was seeing these progress photos of his clients and amazing body recomposition changes. It looked like they gained muscle, lost fat, they were lean, they were this. Yeah, cool. You can lose fat pretty damn easy when you're old. Like, it's the same as anything else. But if you actually followed them through the process, they aren't building muscle and really changing their physique past there. They just ate a little bit more to get into this, what do they call it? The pre-diet, no, it's a primer phase, which I still use myself, but the primer phase is just, no, you need to get yourself ready for a diet. It's a pre-diet. I call it the primer phase too, but the way it's sold, it's just like you get into a primer phase for X amount of weeks and then you can finally diet. No, because that is still not allowing you to build what you want to reveal. Unless you have a lot of body fat to lose, that primer phase then is going to be as long as necessary to get you to a place where you're mentally ready to diet, and you're not going to be focusing on dieting in the process, because now we have you focusing on the right things. The diet's going to work and there's actually significant fat to lose. But otherwise, we want to get your best results. We're going to have you focusing on getting as much out of your training as possible. That's the only reason at the moment that it looks like, I don't see it as a compliment at the moment when I get told that I look leaner. I'm sorry, but I don't see it as a compliment because I never wanted to go in this direction with feeling dysregulated. I want to build freaking muscle. I don't want to be maintaining. But the only reason that it looks like I'm holding so much muscle while I'm lean, and it's honestly why I see mine's the opposite. I don't like posting videos because I look too lean. It's like, no, I don't want to show that because I don't feel comfortable showing that. It's not realistic. And I want to be fueling myself a lot more so that I can actually fit in everything I want to fit in. That is the mindset that is going to get the athletic results. That's why I'm voicing it out loud. I want to be fueling myself to be training like a badass so that I actually feel good within myself, because I feel good when I'm training like a badass and and when I say making progress, I mean, I actually feel like I'm progressing because I'm feeling strong. I'm able to keep the same weights. I don't care about increasing my weights anymore because it's almost impossible with how long I've been training. But if I can keep the same weights and everything feels really good, I feel amazing. I don't feel that way when I'm not in that same position, well fueled and eating in a high maintenance to surplus. And that is what makes the body. You need to fuel the muscle. Yeah, the only reason that I'm able to look quote unquote leanish, well, lean with a lot of muscle, is because I put the time in to build the muscle that most women haven't. And that's the point. That is the whole point. You need to build the muscle. You need to put time into, actually, I know the point I was getting at. If you still like, I say that I'm weak now. I was complaining to Adam at how weak I am, how I'm not lifting as much as I used to. I was still doing 100 kilo RDLs, but I only, in quotation marks, I only did it for 6 reps. Whereas before I was doing it for 10, and then I do it for another 10, and then do it for another 10. And that was only after doing my top set at 107.5 or 105 for 6. And I can't even get close to that now. And I'm still lifting heavy. And it's that training capacity. It's being able to still lift heavy ass weight. That's going to allow you to stay leaner, to keep a lean physique, no matter what. And most people don't have that. They aren't lifting heavy enough. They don't have the muscle there because they've spent their whole life dieting and they think that dieting is the answer. And then you're left confused when you see these photos online showing someone completely leaner, but no, they just lost body fat and there's muscle there because they probably have a good coach that is actually feeding them for fat loss, not starving them for fat loss and completely depleted. So there is still glycogen in the muscle. There is also that to consider. You need to build training capacity. It's not just about muscle. The more that you can do in training, you're burning so many more calories in your training sessions, burning so much more fat because it biases fat burning. Yes, they say you don't burn all that much, but you're burning quite a lot. It's a lot more muscle demand, and muscle doesn't want to be on your body. It wants to do everything to leave. So the fact that it needs to keep itself there is costly. The fact that you need to move that muscle around is costly.
Like you said, it takes a long time to build muscle, and most women haven't even focused on building muscle. Or if they have, it's, the HIIT workouts. Oh, I go to Orange Theory, or, F45 or whatever, which any movement is great movement, but we need muscle in this midlife stage. And, you know, women my age are about toning or shrinking or Pilates, and that's great, but how are you building muscle? You know, that's the question. Most women don't know how to build muscle. So you need the right program, a coach like you who knows how to program and works on everything.
Go back to the mirror reflections, because this is especially important for people in midlife. Like the mirror reflections, the way that I coached you versus the way typical coaches coach. Now that you mentioned it that way.
The just journaling, is that what you
No, just
want
the
me?
way whenever we were talking about things, I openly challenged you, whereas most coaches would just give you what you want. I openly made you question particular things, reflect on particular things, do the journaling, but most of the time it was you going back to yourself, asking yourself the questions. I'm getting you.
Yeah. When I would say I only got 3 workouts, I didn't get 4, you would say, well, why are you saying only 3 workouts? You know, reflecting on my mindset, you would throw questions at me that were hard that I'd have to think and journal and reflect on. And that's
when you said you felt
really
big, that part in particular, I want to know about that part. When you kept saying you felt big or fluffy, there was a lot of times when you were nitpicking yourself. I don't remember the particular things you journaled on, but I know you would because they stood out.
Yeah, I felt, I don't know, I just felt, my lifting belt felt tighter. I just felt fluffier. I don't know how to describe it, just maybe inflamed. I don't know. And I know a lot of it was when I had, hormonal things going on as well. And that has helped, but, messes with your head.
That part's important there. The hormonal things, you can't bypass that. This is why the mindset part's important, because you will never avoid just how much the hormonal flux is going to fuck with you. So if you only care about a scale, or if you rely on DEXA scans, that is going to set you backwards, because DEXA scans are going to show you with a higher body fat percentage because you're going to be retaining water in the wrong places. And the scale is going to go all over the place because your water is going to go, like your body water will be all over the place. Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. Yeah, I mean, I was on birth control for way too long and I'm hypothyroid. I would blame my energy and everything on my thyroid when I finally, talked to my functional doctor. Is like, you need to get off the birth control. We need to start HRT, things that worked for me and my blood work and everything, working with the doctor. And I've never felt better. It wasn't my thyroid, it was the birth control. And now that I'm on HRT and if out in the right dose, I feel so much better. My energy, I don't feel so fluffy, and my hunger too is a lot better. I struggled with that. I could eat a meal and still be hungry, and I think a lot of it had to do with my hormones.
Can we just emphasize how they aren't just making you gain fat out of nowhere? It's how have your habits changed?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was still doing everything, my, movement and my training and eating, and yet I still felt this way. And
can you imagine? This is important. Can you imagine now, all of you listening to this, can you imagine now if she acted like the majority of women out there? And I'm not giving this I'm not shooting this at you in a mean way if this also is you. This is more like a reality check. If you want change, like if you're actually serious about changing, can you imagine if she decided to be stubborn Michelle, go off on her own and just smash herself harder, put herself into a diet, while every single time her hormones were going to sabotage her because of her appetite? And this is why in midlife, you need to stop trying to force change to happen. You need to just do everything you can to put in the effort to make progress, but in the direction of, let's make sure that I keep my results. Let's make sure that I don't lose anything. Let's make sure that I am building on everything that I can build on, because it is a great time to be focusing on all the things you can build on. it is not a great time to be in a surplus because you probably won't be able to stay consistent and train as hard because many of the, like, unless you have very little symptoms, like Michelle hasn't really had all that many symptoms, but I have a couple of girls, two of my ladies. So I would say most of them have actually been able to train really hard. But two of my ladies, example, they have been the least consistent ever. They've been having to do a lot more flow workouts because of their symptoms being so bad, because they are more of the higher stress type that everything kind of impacts them. And when you have lower tolerance for all of the life stuff, then you're going to have very little training recovery capacity. And then I have one lady in particular where hers went out in the emotional eating side. They can't deal with emotions, coping with food. And then there's trying to manage that. And you have to be okay with this mid phase. And I'm sure you know Jo Hayes. And I'm still keen to get her on the podcast. But it was kind of funny because I knew, because there's no other way, it just appears, like out of nowhere, just gained so much weight. And she blamed it on menopause and she blamed it on her age out loud. But it was never to me. Like, we would never have the discussion around that particular thing, because I'm not someone that's going to put you into an uncomfortable situation to talk about something unless you're willing to. Like, I'm someone who understands. When I offered the space, we were talking through whatever we could. We were trying to we were talking more on the stress component, trying to work on the lifestyle stuff. But she could have just completely given up. And she's been coaching with me since 2016. She's 16, 10 years she's been with me. And because of that, we've developed that strong bond. And now look at her. She sent me a message last night. I want to put it onto my stories, but she was in her first, like, in a bikini that she got a couple of years ago. And she's like, it fits even better now. This is the leanest I've ever been. This is the best I've ever felt. This is the best I've ever looked. And I said, what changed? She's never been as consistent or as motivated to stay that way, because I've been ramping on and on about, like, I would not even entertain a lot of her talk around the fat loss particular part of outcomes. I would always ramp on about, I just want to see you I just focused on training all the time, just training. I just want to see you training harder. You're not training hard enough. I want you to push yourself more. And now she came out of it and she's like, yeah, I continue training, but I just went back to old habits of eating just because something's there. But I'm actually, this is why I want to emphasize it. She said, this time I felt absolutely amazing seeing more muscle than I have before. And now I want to keep this feeling, the feeling of fit. She put these in quotation marks. Yeah. Fit, sexy, healthy, confident, all of that combined. So I shifted my focus. I made a point of showing up, aiming to maintain, and then build the muscle I had and and then build on the muscle I had and keep the body fat off. So that's our goal right now. We're not aiming to put on body fat. We're aiming to put on as much muscle as we can, eating higher calories, just not going back to old habits. And now she actually is only doing it for the sake that she fell in love with muscle. She fell in love with realizing, hey, I actually have muscle. I have this training in me. It wasn't just focused around scales. And that's the part so many women miss. Like, it's the muscle that kept her in this time. And so I really had to read that. Like, that to me was the best message I've received in such a long time, because this is the reason you do this as well. This is the reason I do this, because your generation of women, that didn't exist. Go on, because I wanted to come back to that part again because it's so true.
No, muscle's very important. That's, what I preach, what I focus on. And, a lot, well, I have this injury or that. Well, you have maybe something going on, but you can work around it. How many people have I seen show up at the gym in a boot? They maybe had some sort of knee surgery, but they are still showing up doing something. There's always something you can do, always something you can strengthen. And more than likely, whatever you might feel could be weakness and you need to strengthen it. So, the gym is where you're going to push yourself, especially if you're doing it safely and you have, your form down, versus picking up a kid or going to Costco, picking up a case of water, and then, that's where your injury happens, because you aren't strong enough, you pick something up wrong, you don't know form. That's where it's all going to go to hell. I wish more,
Oh,
even friends of mine, they're like, oh, I can't lift like you. No, you don't have to lift like me. You have to lift heavy for you. And, we all start from a place. I mean, if you saw some of my lifting videos from 10 years ago, I mean, I was 80 pounds heavier, and I don't know what I was doing with the deadlift, but we all start from somewhere, and you just keep showing up, and you keep putting in the reps. And that's where it's at. And I've been focusing on this fat loss phase with the muscle fueling my workouts. That's where my food's important, is before my workout and after my workout. That's my focus.
do you remember when you sent me that message and you were like overthinking the whole before and after again? And I'm like, holy shit, this is like the best thing I've ever heard. Like, my response was literally that. It's, oh my God, I love the fact that you're actually caring about like fueling around your workout. This is awesome. And see, she's had this focus the whole time through it. And that's the only reason she's so successful. That's the only reason she's able to put herself into a deeper deficit, which, going into my point, which is huge, I do not believe, I'm debunking myself. I'm debunking the I'm not a Fitzbo. I'm debunking the person, the nugget who lied, aka I didn't lie. It was what I knew back then, but I'm debunking it. I don't believe that. So I used to say that you're better off with a smaller calorie deficit of 200 to 300 calories than you are of, say, a 500 calorie deficit off the bat, which is what MyFitnessPal gives you. Okay, well, if we think of maintenance as a range, you could have your maintenance from, say, 2100 to 2500. That's your maintenance. And we also have to realize that a 300 calorie deficit isn't always a 300 calorie deficit. For some people, it might end up being a 500 calorie deficit. For some people, it might end up being a 150 calorie deficit. And I see that very often, because the people that approach fat loss, they put themselves into a 500 calorie deficit, and then they do even more training, more cardio, thinking that that's going to make the results faster. And then they wonder why they're not seeing results on the lower calories. They lost, well, this particular lady I saw, she lost 3 pounds in 8 weeks, and that's all. And she thinks it's because she's not eating enough now, and because she started doing like 5 to 6 times gym and adding in CrossFit. It's like, well, no, because training has nothing to do with the scale. All I can say is, because you think that training is going to give you scale loss, you're not paying attention to everything else that's happening outside of there. So you're probably fatigued and not even thinking about the fact that you get 500 steps a day. That's an exaggeration. But there are so many other things around that you need to consider. Are you recovering properly? Are you even progressing? And CrossFit isn't doing much. CrossFit actually doesn't burn that much. CrossFit isn't doing anything for hypertrophy either. CrossFit, it's not what built the physiques that do CrossFit. They look like that despite what they do. And they might actually be doing other things outside of that, or they're taking illegal stuff. So especially if you're petite, especially if you're over 40, not just over 30, like this is even bigger for over 40s. A lot of women sit in this awkward middle where they're technically dieting, but the deficit is so small that it's so easy to wipe out, because you can have just the smallest, like you can have just a small chocolate bar in a week and completely be out of a deficit. Or you could eat out one week and put yourself into a surplus, even though you chose the healthier option, because the healthier option, regardless, you're eating out. It usually has 1.5 to 2 times the calories that you think it has, or even that it states, because the chefs don't give a about your waistline. I'm sorry, they don't care about your goals. Most of them don't even care about their own goals, unless, well, their own fitness goals, their own health goals. They care about a tasty restaurant that gets a lot of word of mouth. So that is something to keep in mind. Unless you want to go in like a bodybuilder and say, can you just give me some dry chicken? Which I typically do for my chicken. But like, I don't like my chicken doused in crap, because I love a well-cooked chicken. Like, I love it. I love the way they grill it. Yes, it's going to still have some oils, because you have to grill some oils. I don't like all the extra crap that comes with it. I put it on the side. I'd rather eat my food and not have it swimming in dressing. Like, I want to taste my food. That I think that's another mindset shift that comes with doing all this for so long. Like, my taste buds have shifted. So many people's taste buds have shifted. I know yours have shifted. That's why you're never going to go back to who you were. But yes, a lot of women are sitting in this flip-flop middle where you're technically trying to diet as you have been for your whole life, but the deficit is so small, it's not really doing anything all that much. And then when you can't stick to it, you're pulling yourself out of it. So then you're always in this trying to diet phase. But because you're not building muscle, you're not looking any better either. And if we fast forward to perimenopause and then that hits in this process, you're actually going to end up worse, because now that is going to get stored mostly as body fat regardless, because you're not building muscle. You're flip-flopping. You're more primed for fat storage. And because your hormones have shifted, it's going to go to your belly. It's not like you just gain belly fat overnight. It's just that everything's going to now get portioned to your belly. So instead, because you're losing it and gaining fat every single day. You're losing fat regardless of whether you're in a surplus or a deficit every single day. But you're also gaining fat regardless of whether you're in a surplus or a deficit every single day. It's the net over the day that leads to what your body does over the days, over the weeks. So in that process, it's getting shuttled to your belly. If you don't have these processes in check that are keeping you creating the body composition, the body shape that you desire. That's the frustrating part, because let's say you've been, like I said, maintaining around 2,400 on your higher end of maintenance, and then you drop down to 1,900. That's a big drop. That is a big drop. You're going to be hungry. You might want to, maybe not straight away if you're doing it right and if you have a coach, because then you're not going to have to focus on what your own food is doing. I'd rather someone just look after my food, even write me a diet plan based off my food, not based off them, because I don't eat a single bit like anyone. I eat volume to the max. Like, give me a kilo of pumpkin in a meal and I'll eat it. I friggin' love pumpkin. I would literally eat a whole kilo of pumpkin in one meal. I ate 600 the other day. Regardless, trying to stick to that while trying to perform at your best, while trying to keep up with the kids, something's going to bust at some point. It is hard to maintain for a long period of time if you're doing the smaller deficit and trying to extend that. And then if you're not even staying in that slight deficit, because anything can take you out, this isn't even about just having a chocolate bar. You could have a freaking Oreo and be out of a deficit quite easily. Why? I'm not just talking about the food now. What if in the same phase, your walking dropped? What if in the same phase, you're fiddling less? You didn't even realize that you're parking closer to where you need to go. You just lost calorie expenditure from what you do every day. So there's also that to consider. It's not just about the food, you see? It's about what that food is now impacting, because what you do through the day can impact what your food does, but your food also impacts what the energy does, what you do. And that's why fueling for fat loss is the key. And that's why what you do outside of fat loss is the bigger key. Because if then this all creeps in here and there, that diet can end up feeling really freaking hard, but nothing's moving. But you've been focusing on dieting. And that's where you lose self-trust. That's the frustrating part, because you're hungry. You feel like you're sacrificing. You're putting in all of this discipline. And I had a similar conversation with someone the other day. I was on those calories before and I lost nothing. Well, just 2 kilos in like 10 weeks. Well, yeah, because I'm going to make sure that your weekends count too, because those weekends count. And I don't want to see you drinking the alcohol and going out with friends and saying, I want to be able to be social. No, you're in a freaking fat loss phase. We're getting in and out in these 4 weeks. Because the last thing I want you to do is be in a deficit the week before you're going away on holidays. We don't do that here. We don't do deficits before holidays. Not for like at least 2 weeks before them. Because if you're going to go from deprivation into abundance, what do you think is going to happen on those holidays? What do you think? But if we can get you physiologically out of a deficit, because you're physiologically depressed, as in your hormones do not budge for at least 2 weeks, you're going to stay hungry. You can be eating 500 more calories and be even hungrier because of your hormones. We don't want that on a freaking holiday, because the last thing you want to do is have any thought of, I need to control myself. So we're going to get in and get out. So she's sticking to these calories. She's getting into it for 4 weeks. It's going to be hard. She's going to have to make sure she gets in 12,000 steps. And that is why diets are not meant to be sustainable. Yes, you need to sustain it for at least 4 weeks, at least 6 weeks, depending on where you sit on the spectrum. I like to say as long as you can sustain it for 6 weeks average, that's fine, because that gives us 4 to 8 weeks to play with. Then we can get out and get back in again. We can do 12 weeks if you want, but I would not want to do a diet for longer than 8 weeks. I'm sorry. The way that I do dieting, I would want to be in it for 8 weeks max, get out, and then consider it later on. Because this girl wants to fuel to perform and make sure that everything is in check. And I'm not like, I can mentally know that, hey, I'm fine in this. And your nervous system needs to know that as well, especially when you're in that older age bracket. And for a lot of women, that's where they get stuck and they think they're failing. But no, it's just you're trying to sit in a diet that's too small to work and you're not ever in a place to be building muscle. So it's too annoying, too frustrating to even feel like it's worth it. So then you put in less effort and then you wonder why you're actually gaining fat in a deficit. You didn't realize that you're subconsciously putting in less effort. So you're better off creating a much more meaningful deficit for a shorter intentional block, or using a structure that actually fits real life better. Like what I said, the 4 weeks on and then off. Or if there are events, make sure that they're outside of the fat loss phase. Or there are people that do even harder diets for 6 days of the week so they can enjoy the 7th day. But I would say for most women, that is not realistic because you have less calories to play with to start with. I would be more so, let's do 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and factor that 1 week in as auto regulation around whenever the hell you get your period, because a lot of you in this midlife stage don't get your periods every 4 weeks. So it would be whenever you feel like that is coming on, know your symptoms, bring yourself out of a deficit. Cool, let's go back into a deficit. That's the only way I would undulate it outside of that. And then we'll keep going. That is probably the best approach to take because it's better than trying to fight yourself when your hormones are at whack with your, especially if you have PMDD, which a couple of my clients have that too. And I'm ranting again. So please, can you rant after this to tie it off? Because I want to make sure that you end this well. And I didn't realize how long we're going for. But if you're going to diet, it needs to be big enough to produce change to be worth it, to give you the proof that, hey, this is working. And if your usual approach, you might have a lot of fat to lose, just like Michelle did when she came to me. And I know that I see that. I'm not going to be this, I love your body at every size. No. You need to build the lifestyle that creates a life you love. It's not about your body. It's about creating the life you love. You experience life through your body and you want that body to be healthy and fit and strong. And yes, you want to look good too. But there's going to be no body positivity if you're not doing things in your life that create it, just like Joe did. So yes, we want to have it be enough to produce change, but not so aggressive that it tanks your sleep, your training, your recovery, your mood, your hunger, your adherence, and makes you throw bread loaves at your partner and temperamental. That is the real conversation there. Because especially as women, we need to understand that if fat loss is the goal, you are going to spend some time in that lower calorie place. And I'm sick of people saying that 1,200 calories is too low. No, for some petite women, that is what they need for a deficit. It is not their maintenance. And it's not my fault that they ended up there. It's blame society for sabotaging their ability to actually just stick with the muscle building phase and build other things up. And some people cannot make the sacrifices to get in way more steps and more cardio. And for some people, adding in more cardio just makes them hungrier. So they rather take it from their food. Would I want you on 1,200 calories? No. But if you're petite, you might need to do it for a short period of time. But I would rather get you to a place where 1,400 is the minimum that we need to do. Because I would put people on 1,300 to 1,400 easily for 4 weeks. 4 weeks, like I want you to be able to stick to it because that shit's hard. And I'm talking about women who need that. Most of the time, it's going to be more around the 1,500, 1,600 mark, which to me sounds really freaking miserable still. That's why I'm just happy that I put in the work because I cannot imagine needing to be dieting on that shit every time. No wonder people are just frustrated. Like I'm sure you're the same. Like, can you imagine I'm just saying those calories. I feel like I'm committing a sin, even saying 1200. It just feels gross. Like, get yourself to a place where you don't have to do that shit, seriously. But regardless, you want to get yourself to this lower calorie price. You want to push yourself through this so that you can get out of it and actually live at the higher calories again. You don't want to be in this middle place and hardly see anything for it, but yet still not be able to live the life you want to live outside of it because it's not enough food, and everything else still feels shit because you're still dieting. So a fat loss phase does not need to be sustainable forever, but it does need to be sustainable for the phase. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe a little bit longer depending on the person, but it does need to be something that you can execute properly, recover from, and then exit without losing your mind and just spiraling like most people do, because that is also where a lot of women get it wrong. They try to make every meal fun, spontaneous, social, satisfying, and that was Michelle, because she didn't want to make the sacrifices because it was all in her history. And what's the whole point making the sacrifices? What's the whole point saying, no, I'm going to actually just not have the donut now. I'm not going to, like, before it was like, it's just one, and we want to be able to portray that to social media so it looks like we have flexibility, but no, it doesn't work that way. Like, you can't just keep fitting in that one, because it's not about the, yeah, okay, cool. It can be a 300 calorie donut, and it's 300 calories, it's not 800, or it's a 200 calorie donut, but it's not about the donut. It's about what you are trading off for that. Satisfaction. Now you're going to have more cravings because you just had something sweet, and sweet tends to make you crave more sweet. Now you just gave in to, okay, I want this. It gets the reward. Your brain learns that habit loop. There's a lot of cost for your actions, trade-offs for everything you do. Make sure that you're executing it properly without losing your mind, and that you're going to make the sacrifices for that short period of time and be willing to be hungry. I would say try to have something filling before bed. Sometimes you're not going to feel as satisfied as you're used to feeling. It's funny how we can actually push through that sometimes, but it's even harder to push through the opposite end of the spectrum, where now we're fueling ourselves more, we're feeding ourselves more, and now we're going to bed with such a full belly, or we're feeling really full after meals. I want you to compare the contrast there as well, with the full feeling that I'm eating more food. A lot of women aren't used to not having that hunger there and not having to think of restriction. It can be really foreign, really scary, because, oh my God, is this fat? Oh my God, is this?
I think more women need to focus on learning how to maintain and just building muscle through maintenance, even though it takes a long time. But yeah, I know I wanted to lose fat, and there's a time and place for it. But like you said, you have to be in the right mindset and willing to execute it, get in, get out. And it is miserable to go to bed hungry. It's also miserable to go to bed really full. And what's the in between? Working on feeling satisfied. And most women don't know what maintenance is or how to live there. It's either I'm restricting to because I feel, fluffy, or I'm back to old habits. And that's how I lived. And it's no way to live. And you need to focus on developing habits and learning how to eat properly. A lot of people don't even know how to eat properly. What do you mean I need to eat protein? What do you mean I need to, some people don't even know what a proper plate of nutrition looks like. And that's where you should start. How does this food make me feel? Do I feel full? Do I feel satisfied? When just focusing on how the food makes you feel. That's also a very good, because sometimes I know I used to just eat for the taste and eat, not even think of how I felt until I felt horrible. So how do you get from there to, the balance? The balance is hard. So, learning to balance how you feel, also with enjoying food, learning how to regulate your emotions other than with just food. That's one thing I learned and had to work on, because my crutch was eating. I feel sad, I'm going to eat. I feel stressed, I'm going to shove, chocolate chips or whatever in my mouth. That's what I would do. Now I move, I walk, I have other tools in my tool belt than just food. But sometimes the food, maybe you do need that, and that's okay, but not for every single time you're having these emotions, because life is hard and you're going to go through these things. And it's how you react to the situation. And mine was food. and alcohol for a very long time. And it just got me to a place where I just was, you know, overweight and under muscled and unhealthy. So that's how I'd wrap it up. Learn maintenance, first of all, how to live there, work on training, work on learning how to lift. That's what women my age need more than ever versus dieting and restricting because we all know how to eat less food.
Yeah, and that's literally the only way that you're going to be able to maintain it. There was something you said there about the emotional toolbox. I actually have a free guide for anyone listening to this. Well, it's actually not a free guide, it's exclusive for my girls, but for anyone listening to this who's listened all the way through part 1 and is now listening all the way through part 2, not comment. Well, you can comment too, because I'll see the comments on the podcast. It's just I'm typically very late to see them. But if you go onto my Instagram, I'll have it down below. Or if you know Michelle and you say it to her, I'll get her to pass you on to me. And I'll send you my PDF guide for the emotional toolbox, because this is a really hard thing to develop, especially when food is our comfort. It's like an alcoholic drug that we don't want to get rid of. It's almost like, oh, but I don't want to face this because what am I going to do without that blanket? It's like a fear thing because you don't want to face the emotions. So there's a whole thing to it where it's not about replacing the food. It's food is okay to keep in. Food is okay to still go to, but it can't be your one and only. It's not switching from one to the other. And this is, again, where where getting the right coach is the key, because they understand this. They know what it's like to be in your shoes. If you have other things that come in with it, we can start to experiment with other things at the same time and not berate ourselves for still going to food, because we know that, hey, that's still part of our toolbox. It's just we want to experience what else makes us feel good. And the real question is, are you really getting comfort out of it, or is it more like ghost shadow comfort? It lasts a little bit and then it fades away. For someone who's listening, who's wanting to actually break the cycle of trying really hard where you are, where were you before? How has your life, how has everything changed for the better? How has coaching, because we all believe as women, especially in our age bracket, in your age bracket, more than anything, feel like we should be able to do this on our own. That, like, what's wrong with me if I can't figure it out? I should be able to figure this out already. All the things, this shift in mindset above everything has brought you. The fact that we're seeing the best results ever. Oh my God, you guys, the photos, just comparing the photos from when she came to me to now, especially, you can see so much body recomposition change. Her whole shape has changed. And from apple to hourglass, she has a butt now. And she knows they came from Bulgarian freaking split squats.
Yeah. Bulgarians, yeah. Mindset plays a huge role in it, and how you think of yourself, treat yourself, how you talk to yourself. And you really worked on mindset with me. And over the past year, I also went into therapy, which helps. So if you have you as a coach and you're getting therapy, that's like win-win. And more women need that. And just dealing with different things with childhood and different things, and what set me off to go to food, or I deserve to have some drinks, or whatever it may be. I'm sorry, my brain is like an overload, but just going from you asking the hard questions. You need a coach that's going to like what you do, mirror back, reflect. The hard questions make you think. It's going to take time, and you may not think you're making progress, but eventually it clicks, and wow, look at how I've changed in thinking this way. Even my photos, like I'd be like, why am I not making changes? And it'd be like month to month.
And I didn't even look at her photos at all. Like, I literally didn't look at her photos. She would say I uploaded photos. I'm like, cool. I don't care, because that was something we're working on. And it can really hit you as if Michelle wasn't where she is now, and she wasn't we didn't develop this relationship, which is what coaching should be all about. But it's not on the coach to do that for you. you need to be the one that is going to help connect as well. Like most of this was the fact that you were doing the conversations as well. We were talking about more, like, I want you to actually explain how we got to this place with you being able to trust me and saying all of that, because I think that's the hardest part, because it's the typical approach. They would not have taken it the same way that you were able to take it with me, but I think deep down, because of the way that I was trying to explain things and I was congruent with my message, it made sense to you deep down. So for someone who's not in that aware state as you, how can they develop that relationship with their coach and get to that same position? They can lean all the way in knowing that their best intentions are about to get panned out, because now look at you, like freaking look at you.
I think, though, if you're going to hire a coach, you have to trust them. And I trusted you, but some of the things you would make me reflect or say, yeah, some of it was hard to hear. I'm just like, what do you mean I have to stop comparing photos? What else am I going to compare my progress to? And there's more to progress than just photos. But, you need to do the journaling, do the work. If you're not ready to do that, then it's not going to work out. Go to therapy. I don't know what else to say. You have to trust the coach. So I obviously trust and have followed you before I even hired you, and listened to your podcast, and you were the real deal. So, you would make me reflect on things I didn't want to think about, but I had to do the work. If I didn't do the work, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. And I think that's the whole part of this. If you see self-development as not a part of your body transformation process, and you flip it off as not wanting to spend time on it because it's not leading to anything tangible, quote unquote, then you're never going to get anything tangible. So developing an emotional toolbox is something that I'm going to keep coming back to, especially in perimenopause, because your hormones are crazy and they're going to influence a lot of things. Just as Michelle said, intentional deficits. That's exactly what we're doing now for the first time. Wins in consistency. The self-trust is the biggest part. Also, the fluffier, bigger feelings. She was feeling fluffy and bigger, and it was always the thing that she was feeling. And I always had to say, well, I wonder what led to that. Could it be this, this, and this? The biggest cause of feeling a particular way about your body is because you don't have a sense of control over, number one, your direction. Your intentions aren't lining up with what your actions are. You don't have self-trust, and you're not doing the self-development work, and you're not working on yourself. Because when you work on yourself, you start to shift your focus. And when you start to see things differently, the things you look at start to change. And now all of a sudden, you're in a whole new world, you're in a whole new identity, and boom, there's Michelle. The progress has been phenomenal. Not only did you get stronger, like power to weight ratio, you're stronger now than you were in powerlifting. In a wide range of spectrums, you're able to execute movements with a lot more balance. You're doing the single leg work. The fact that you are married now to how you are training, your results are the results of the focus that you put into your training and into your mindset, yourself, and trusting me. The hard shit that you might be like, well, but then you reflect on it or you sleep on it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you have like that epiphany. And that's the point. It'll come to you. But if you completely dismiss it, no. For any of you who relate with Michelle's story, reach out to her. She walks the talk, as dedicated to coaching, because we only have the capacity to deal with so much. We have other things where we want to put our energy. Having a mentor who's a guide, that's the only way that you're going to grow past where you are now. You are never going to see things outside of the box that you're in, outside of the perspective that you see them from.
I think we covered a lot of great things.
Message me on Instagram, TransformXRuby, and say emotional toolbox. I'll send you the link if there's anything else I can help you with. Let me know, and you'll hear me on the next podcast.